So I'm Sophie.
I'm Cass.
And this is
Podclass
with Sophie
and Cass.
Today, we are going to talk about setting boundaries and people pleasing. And how this topic came about is because I was scrolling on Instagram one day and I came across a book called Set Boundaries, Find Peace by Nedraa Glover Tawwab. I'm not sure if that's how you pronounce her name, but and basically the book, the way that it's structured is she goes through different situations. She's a therapist. So she goes through different situations or experiences that people have told her about. And she, in a way, is like, if you relate to this, these are the signs of your issues in people pleasing, because you could have trouble with setting boundaries for different reasons. It can be a trauma response. It could just be that you're very empathetic, so you're allowing for others to kind of step all over you. And she goes over the steps that we need to take in order to set those boundaries, because in setting boundaries, we're fostering healthy relationships with others. So first, I'm going to go over the definition of people pleasing. It is associated with a personality trait known as sociotrop, or feeling overly concerned with pleasing others and earning their approval as a way to maintain healthy relationships. And it can be associated to anxiety or depression, avoidant personality disorder, borderline personality disorder, codependency, or dependent personality disorder. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean that just because you have anxiety, you're a people pleaser, or vice versa, but it definitely is correlated. So signs that you are a people pleaser. Now, Cass, I'm going to see if you check some of the boxes on this list, because I know I do. You guys, you know what I want to say though? Like, Cass is one of the nicest people that I know, like, in the sense, like, she's so polite. I remember when I met her, she would overly apologize for everything. Like, literally the smallest thing. Oh, I'm sorry. And I remember, do you remember I told you once, I'm like, bro, can you stop saying you're sorry? Like, you don't need to be sorry for everything. Like, it's okay.
Yeah. I'm a people pleaser. I mean, I'm a recovering people pleaser, but let's go over the traits, because there's definitely probably stuff I relate to.
So we have trouble saying no to people.
Yeah.
You are preoccupied with what other people might think of you. You feel guilty, or you don't want to seem like a mean person because you're saying no to people. You do things for approval, and you sometimes neglect your own needs in order to please others.
All of the above.
Just like check.
No, it's so annoying. But yeah, like, I feel like it comes back to fucking childhood trauma and shit. But yeah, I find myself, like you said, feeling, like putting other people's needs before mine. And I think that was like something that I started to learn about myself very recently too. Not like it's just something that I've been doing for the rest of my life, or I feel like I've even like made steps towards changing it effectively. But it's the why am I putting myself or agreeing to things that honestly put me in a bad situation, and then I'm just stressed, and then maybe I can't even, maybe I'm not on time, or maybe I can't actually help a person out, but I'm putting myself out there to do so. So I'm not only hurting myself, but I'm also hurting that person. I think.
And your relationship with that person, because if you're not transparent about, like, I consider myself to also be a recovering people pleaser, because I have an issue with saying no. And I found myself a lot of the times like being stressed or overwhelmed with work, because maybe I don't have the time to do something for you, but because you're my friend, I don't know how to say no to you because I don't want to seem rude or mean. And recently I've been practicing saying no a little bit more. And at first you feel guilty, like you're going to feel guilty at first because you don't want to seem mean. But then after 9 out of 10 times, if that person is a good friend, or, it's someone that really cares about you, they're going to respect that you are not always available, and like that's fine.
Yeah.
You know, so some of the causes for people pleasing are poor self-esteem, insecurity, perfectionism, and or past experiences. So with past experiences, like you mentioned before, it could be childhood trauma. It can be maybe the relationship that you had with your parents growing up, or even the relationships you had with your friends when you were younger. With perfectionism, I relate more with the perfectionist part. Like, I love everything to be perfect. So I usually take on things that are maybe not my responsibility, because I'm like, I just want it to look good. So for example, you know, when like you're in college or high school, they have to do a group project. I was always the kind of person that I was like, no, like, let me do everything, because I know that you're going to fuck it up. So I just rather do all the work and have it be perfect, you know? And obviously, like, that's not how it works. That's not how life works. So how do we stop people pleasing? Well, we have to establish boundaries. Establishing boundaries is what's going to guide us to have healthier relationships with others. But it can be a hard process, because also sometimes people don't know how to respect the boundaries, even when you set them. So she mentions in the book a lot of different situations as to why you might have issues setting boundaries, right? One of them is trauma bonding. We've heard a lot about trauma bonding, especially with toxic relationships. I feel so trauma bonding happens as a result of emotional and intellectual boundary violations. So over time, a person has been manipulated into believing that in some way they deserve what is happening to them. So you find yourself excusing the other person's behavior. So let's say, for instance, right, an example that she put was, this girl was in a relationship and she knew that her boyfriend was stressed and overwhelmed. So he would treat her badly, and she would excuse his behavior towards her because she knew, oh, he's just getting triggered because he has some stuff going on.
Other things going on, yeah. Okay. Like making excuses, really.
Making excuses. That is a no-no. You know, you need to set the boundary of, I understand you're going through something, but it's not my fault, and you can't, that doesn't give you a right to be disrespectful.
Yeah.
Right.
Especially if it's like a reoccurring thing. If it was like one slip, like he had an attitude one day, that's fine. But if it's that this is a consistent theme in your relationship, then like it's just gonna get worse.
And it
unless
does.
you do set that boundary.
It does too, because not only does it get worse, like that you're gonna probably continue to get treated worse, but also this is a lot, it happens a lot with people pleasing, because you're taking it and you're taking it and you're taking it. That's also building up inside you a sort of resentment. So one day you're gonna just tell the guy, you know what, fuck you, instead of you trying to actually fix it while it's happening. You know, you get fed up.
It's true.
Another example that she put, because I feel like we mentioned relationships a lot, she put an example with friendships, and I've had this happen to me. Yo, we always have that one friend that's a fucking hater, bro. And you like, you know that person is a hater, but because they're your friend, you try to like not be mean about it, because again, you try to empathize. No, they're insecure or they're going through something, whatever, but you know on the low they're hating on you. So have you ever been in a situation where you're with your friend and then that person tries to kind of like make fun of you or say something in regards to you to make them look better?
I don't think I've ever been in that situation. I think I know people that have been in that situation. Yeah, I mean, I don't know how I would even react, to be honest. Like, I don't think I'd say anything in the moment, for sure. I would just remember that and kind of act accordingly. Like, that's the
not
only thing I can say.
That is not
healthy.
That is literally the opposite of what we are saying. She's like, I wouldn't say anything, but like, I'd be a bitch.
No, but I mean, I guess what I meant, you're right, it's unhealthy. I need to talk. But what I meant by act accordingly was more of like, okay, like you're like a hater, then I'm just gonna distance myself from you a bit. But you're right. But what am I supposed to say? I noticed you're a hater. Like, how do I bring it up?
I'm going to talk about a situation that happened to me, and it's a recurring situation because the person still sometimes continues to do this. And you know probably who I'm talking about, which is the funniest part. And so does my friend Samantha and like everybody that knows me. But one time I was out with this friend of mine, right? And we were with two guys, but like not like that. Like, well, for me, it wasn't like that. For her, you know what I mean? Yeah. So I knew she liked one of them, but she was in a relationship and I didn't even like him, but I could tell that the guy was flirting with me. Okay. And to this day, he tries to flirt with me, to be completely honest with you. But anyways, that's besides the point. So I could tell he was flirting with me, but I wasn't giving in because I'm like, you know, I know that she likes you and you're not my type. Even her knowing this, that he wasn't my type, that I wasn't, you know, trying to flirt with him back or anything. We were sitting at a bar and then he goes, oh, so like you like to work out? And I was like, yeah, I like to work out and stuff. And she said something like, yeah, she likes to work out. Can't you tell that she only wears sports bras? Or something like that. Cause I was wearing like a sports bra and some sweatpants because it was like a chill day, you know? Yo me quedé. I was like, okay. Even him like kind of like looked at me because I was like, it was so out of place for her to say that.
Yeah.
And it did make me feel uncomfortable. Comment. It was very catty. And I never brought it up because I have issues. Clearly?
No, but it's like, how do you bring that up? Like, what am I supposed to say? I noticed you made a weird comment, and like, I don't want to tell her like you're hating on me, you know,
because she's gonna not admit to it.
She's not gonna admit to that. She's gonna be like, "What are you talking about?" Like, blah, 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 blah.
However, I have to say, what time I did tell her though, because that's the thing. What I was saying before, that you get fed up. I was so fed up because this girl, even professionally, she would like, I guess, see me as a threat, even though we work in completely different fields. But sometimes I'll do work in her field, like not even, I don't even get paid for it. Like, but you know what I mean? Whatever. So once I straight up told her, I'm like, yo, like, are you jealous? Like, I straight up, and of course she's like, why would I be jealous? This and that. And I'm like, no, I'm like, it's just that your comments or like the way that you're reacting, it seems like it's coming out of like a bad place. And I'm kind of tired of it because like you always have backhanded compliments. Backhanded compliments don't come from people that actually are nice, you know? Haters. However, I'm learning to set boundaries. How I'm doing it is, for example, she's used to me being available every time that she wants to make plans, and now I'm like, no, like if I can't, I can't. And I'll tell her like, I can't, I'm busy. And I'm okay with that versus before I'd be like, oh, but this is probably the only time that we're going to be able to meet up because every time that I can, she never can. You know what I mean? So anyways, so then, with trauma bonding, like I said, it can be you going back to an unhealthy relationship is a form of trauma bonding. We've all been there where you can't break up with the person and you keep going back to them. You need to set the boundary. Like, no, I know this is toxic. This is unhealthy for me. And this is it, you know? Cycling from harsh treatment to kindness. That happens a lot in toxic relationships in the sense of like, he's nice to me one day, but then the next day he's an asshole. And you justify the assholeness for the kindness part. And then the last one, and I've always said this, if you are in a situation where you don't feel comfortable to tell your friends and your family members about what's really going on, you're in a bad situation. Because why don't you feel comfortable to talk about it?
You should be able to be very transparent. Not like, and I actually thought about that the other day. Like, I felt like now in this relationship, I didn't feel uncomfortable or nervous to like bring him around family that no one in my life has met, or like, and I'm not talking just about significant others, I'm talking about my best friends. Like, for example, they haven't met my dad, and you know, to bring him around that, it felt like natural and easy. I didn't feel like I had anything to hide, or I had to, or that my family was going to feel weird about him, because your family knows when you're acting different. They know, they've known you all your life. So I think that they can pick up on a relationship that really isn't for you. And it's like, you also know in like the back of your mind it's not for you, so you rather just avoid at all costs and try to like,
Hide
usually
it.
not even bring them around, hide them. Yeah. And I
Yeah.
think that that's just, you're hiding a part of you essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think it's a sustainable way of living.
Mm-hmm.
um
Yeah, because sometimes also I feel like we're fearful of that, our family might not accept the person,
yeah.
or it could be a lot of reasons why you don't bring someone around. But if you know that the reasons are because it's a toxic cycle, then that's different. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So how can we go about setting boundaries with trauma bonding? So be clear about how you expect others to treat you. So if the person is
Mhm.
talking to you a certain way, you say, don't talk to me like that. Don't talk to me
Mhm.
like that. Or when you're ready to talk, you let me know.
Mhm.
Also, share your relationship issues only with people you trust. Do not share your relationship issues with
With anybody who wants to listen.
Instagram acquaintances, because let me tell you something. People's intentions, unfortunately, are not always good. So sometimes you're
Yeah.
going to be telling someone, oh, I'm having these issues, and low key, they're happy that you're having these issues.
Yeah.
So make sure. I've learned, I used to be like, I would tell everybody, oh, this is what's going on, this, that. Everybody and their mother knew about what was going on in my life. And I have learned to keep it to myself.
No, I'm
Because
not stupid for that. You're just stupid because you're like, everybody knew. Everybody. Anyone who wanted to listen, I told them.
I meet you at a bar. So let me tell you what happened with this guy. Like, I would tell everybody, And it's like, no, like, you have to really keep shit to yourself, because also a lot of the times, and I've had this happen with friends, right? I've had this happen with friends that they'll come to me about relationship issues with their man. And I'll be like, he's such a dick. He's such an asshole. Like, you need to leave him, da, 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 whatever, right? And then I meet the guy and I'm like, espérate. He's not the problem. You are. You are the toxic one. So obviously I'm giving you
No,
advice
that's
based on what you're
true.
saying.
You bring up a really good point. I don't know if I've ever brought this up before on Podclass, but it was just a quick like article that I read that just the girl is talking about how she used to have a lot of problems in her relationship. And then she realized that whenever she would have an issue, she wouldn't talk to her boyfriend about it. She would talk to her friends about it and then talk to her boyfriend. So it was just like, you're not communicating with the one person that you need to be talking to. And I like kind of kept that in the back of my head always. And as I moved into this relationship, I made that a point. I don't talk about my relationship problems with like anyone, like you said, unless I really, really trust them. Like, unless
Yeah.
it's you and I'm like, so if I'm feeling this kind of way. But I also know myself enough to paint the full picture when I talk about things as much as I can. But like you said, you will never know like what that other person brings to the table and what your friend is actually bringing to the table too.
Exactly.
So whenever I have a friend that asks me for advice, I also just try to I give them the advice of like, maybe you should communicate these feelings to him
With
or her.
him.
Like,
With him.
yeah.
Oh, I wanted to mention one last thing before you get into the research that you did. The other day, I was scrolling on Instagram. I feel like I've been saying this a lot. And I came across a term called hyper-independence. Have you heard of this before?
No.
Bruh.
What's it
I'm like figuring myself out as time goes by. So hyper-independence is a trauma response. It can be rooted in your childhood or even as an adult. You were at some point in a situation where you felt like you couldn't really count on others. So now you're like, I got me. So what does this do? You are overly independent in the sense like you'll have a relationship or a friendship, but you're like, I don't care if you leave because at the end of the day, I got me. That's not healthy because we do need other people. Like that's the way society works, right? This is linked to people pleasing because since I don't want you to leave me, and since I'm so independent, I believe that I can do everything on my own. I don't need anybody. And I'm going to do it so that you feel that you need me. And they mentioned relationships, saying like people that are hyper independent usually date people that are somewhat dependent on them. So they feel they have control over the situation. I found myself doing that in the past for sure. Because I am the kind of person that I like to I like to do everything, take care of everything. And sometimes I just need for my friend or for someone to be like, yo, like, it's good. Like, if you can't do it, like you're good.
Yeah.
It's okay.
I think that, however, the one like silver lining of learning about things and like realizing these, these trauma responses that we may have is that like I find power in awareness. I feel like that's like a mantra for me. So whenever I learn something or I'm, exposed to something, it doesn't mean that I have to change it in that very moment. It doesn't mean that I, now that's my life's mission. Sometimes I forget, but it's just that first awareness that allows you to now become an observer of the situations that you're in instead of you just reacting to everything happening around you. It just sheds a little bit more light into yourself, your thought habits. Yeah, so I think like although sometimes it's like good, you're also able to just know about yourself a little more and I guess act accordingly. But yeah,
no,
so
definitely being aware, which is why I like to like do the research for Podclass and stuff, is because the more that you learn about things in general, I feel like the more you learn about yourself as well. Like through this book, what's crazy? I was talking to this guy about my issues with like setting boundaries and stuff because I had been so overwhelmed like the past couple of weeks. And I told him like I'm reading this book about it and it's really like helping me out because he kept telling me like, yo, just say no. And I'm like, you don't get it. Like, I don't know how to do that. Like, I don't know how to say no. And I was reading about it and I was reading as I was reading about it. Once you find the explanation for certain behaviors that you have, or you see like, oh, I'm not the only person that has, trouble doing that. You realize like, okay, this is something that I need to work on and it's something that I can work on and it's okay. And and to be honest, and setting boundaries, what I've come to realize in my recovery for people pleasing, what I've come to realize is it's the little things in your everyday life. So like, let's say that I had an instance where I had to like study one day, like I had a lot of work to do. And the day before my friend was like, oh, can you come with me to do something like to a different city? Like she had a doctor's appointment. And I felt so bad because I was like, I want to go with you, but like, if I go with you, I'm going to be so stressed out because I'm not going to be able to get everything done that I had planned for the day. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to say no, like I can't, like whatever. And I felt so bad, like instantly. And then her mom ended up going with her. And I was like, okay, like that wasn't that big of a deal. Like, if I would have gone, it would have put that burden on me of going out of my way for people, when in reality 9 out of 10 times it's not a big deal.
And it's also something that like you said, it's taking those small steps. You don't have to like be like, everybody who asks me to do something, I'm gonna say no. Like it's definitely knowing yourself. And I think that this whole setting boundaries thing is just us also growing up, right? Because I think that a lot of people that are older, for example, my mom, I noticed this with her. She doesn't do anything that doesn't convenience her. And not that my mom is a selfish person. I think she actually is one of the most selfless people, but she just knows when to be. So like I said, so Sophie got into like a lot of like what it is, what could be caused by it, ways in which we kind of deal with that, like what can happen to us if we don't set those boundaries from the beginning. So some of the research that I did was just more of like how to set the boundaries and what that may look like for you. So there are differences between boundaries. So you can have rigid boundaries or loose boundaries. A rigid boundary could be keeping others at a distance. You can seem detached even with intimate people, have few close relationships. So if you are the kind of person who has very rigid boundaries, you can be closed off in a sense. Whereas if you have loose boundaries, which I feel like I do, you may find it difficult to say no to others' requests, overshare personal information with others, seek to please others for fear of rejection, and get too involved with others' problems. So a big thing is like you have to make your expectations clear. And that is what a boundary is. You expect certain things for yourself, um, and only for yourself. Again, a boundary isn't to please someone else or make anyone else's life easier. This is just so you can stay at peace. So there are 5 different types of boundaries. So going from physical, so anything like your personal space, your property, your body; sexual, so that's concerning intimacy with a partner; you have intellectual, so your thoughts and your beliefs; also emotional, which comes with your feelings; and then financial, which is self-explanatory. So a big thing that was like made clear in the article I was reading was just setting boundaries not only protects your sense of self, but also your mental well-being. So we are, yeah, like, you realize how anxious you could get if you commit to something and then you have less time for studying, and then you're overwhelmed in the week. So it's like these decisions don't just have an immediate effect. They can kind of set you off into like a whirlwind of like stress and feeling of overwhelming, because let's say you didn't take the day to study what you needed to get done, then the next day it just mounted up, and then your mind just going about, oh my god, I have all these things to do, and it was just because you made the decision to like be there for someone and you weren't there for yourself.
Yeah,
So
I totally, I'm glad that you mentioned that there's like different types of situations where like people can, like, like you said, intellectual, physical, financial, because a lot of the times I feel like if you're an empathetic person, you want to make, like you said, other people's problems your own. And if you're going through something as it is, and you're also focusing on what another person is going through, that is so detrimental for your mental health, because sometimes, first of all, there's only so much you can do. It's not your job to save anybody. Like, you could be supportive, you could be there for the person. Don't commit to something that either you're not going to be able to do for them, or it's going to stress you out, because you're like you said, I have so many things to do and I'm going to have to put everything to the side for you. Because also that goes back to what I mentioned earlier about the resentment. Like, if I'm sacrificing so much for you, it's only natural that I'm going to expect the same in return. And unfortunately, that is not always the case. So if sometimes, like we mentioned earlier, you just have to say no. And to be honest, if the person cares about you, and the person loves you, they're going to understand, they're going to respect it. And one of the things that they also mentioned in this book, because what happens if the person doesn't respect the boundary, right? What happens then? Like, if you keep telling them like, no, it's very simple, you need to cut them off. That's it. And it's unfortunate that sometimes friendships, relationships have to end. If it's a situation where it's a parent, that's obviously very different. If it's a family member, it's unfortunate because you can't just cut, like, I mean, you can, but like, it's not the same,
It definitely isn't the same. But I think that if you're ever finding yourself in a situation where it's a little deeper, like you have to cut family members off, be honest with yourself. Have you really tried to like mend this relationship with that family member? Have you communicated your feelings? Have you been clear? Like, you don't, I also think it's like, you don't get to just be like, I'm done, and then just never talk, and then they're just gonna be left like at what's going on. For you to feel okay, especially as a people pleaser, I think the best thing that you can do is explain how you're feeling to this person, communicate that. And if, like you said, they're not acting accordingly, just be like, listen, I need my space. And this is something I've made clear. I need my space, and this has nothing to do with you, but for my well-being, I need my space. So I am choosing to like detach.
Yes. And to communicate that sometimes can also, it comes out as intimidating sometimes, but too bad, because I found myself like saying like, this is my thing. And this is why I think you and I are such good friends. It's because we know how to give each other space. Like, when we were living together, we know when you just need to be in your room doing your own thing. I need to be doing my own thing, you know what I mean? And then we could do something together later or not, whatever the case is. But some friends, some people are more, I don't want to use the word needy because I think that that's such a mean word, but I guess they're not as independent with their lives. So like I have friends that they don't know how to stay busy, for instance. Like they don't really have any hobbies. So they want to go out all the time, or they want to do something together and be together all the time. And it's like, I can't do that. I have things to do. I can't be going out all the time. I can't be going out to eat. Like I can't be doing that. And sometimes I've had, people get offended, like, yo, you're always busy, or like, you always, that. And I'm like, I'm sorry, but at the end of the day, I have to prioritize my needs, because I know that if I don't get this done, like you said before, it's going to build up into more stress. And at the end of the day, when I'm taking my test, you're not going to be there. It's going to be me. And if I don't know what's on that paper, you're not going to be there to tell me what the fuck to write on that paper. So, and also it's good to tell these people sometimes, like, I don't need to be explaining myself to you. I don't need to, the only people that I need to be giving explanations to is my partner, and depends on the circumstance.
That's very true.
But it's my partner, and if anything, like my parents, like a family member, like this happened because of this, yada yada, whatever. But I don't need to be giving you explanations of why I'm not going out for a drink on Friday. If I'm not going, I'm not going.
Yeah, I think that's super valid. And I wanted to mention some things that you actually brought up about, like, not having to explain your boundary. So, okay, it's because I feel like sometimes when I can't do something, I have to tell you the whole story. Like, I have to be like, so
this is the reason
when I was
why.
born. Yeah.
So it all started.
But like, and that's something else. It's like I need to stop. And I actually have a student in one of my yoga classes who, I forgot what it was that I said I'm sorry for. Or like I was like, oh, I'm sorry, I won't be able to be here because something. It's just like, you don't have to explain yourself. And I was like, you're right. I don't have to explain myself.
Like, hold on. You're absolutely right. Like, why am I talking shit right now?
And I'm like, I need to practice that. And it's not to be like standoffish or whatever, or even intimidating, like, it's just like, no,
I can't.
Like that silence.
You know what that reminded me of? You know what that reminded? Okay, I'm gonna say the story. I'm not gonna say names though. I'm not gonna say names though. One time, Cassandra and I were at
Okay, you could say the story. That's so fucking funny, bro.
Cassandra and I went to a Friendsgiving, right? And everybody, it was a potluck, so everybody had to bring their own plate, whatever. So there was this one girl that they had asked her, right, if she could go pass by to grab like a roasted chicken or some shit like that. Yeah. And she said, oh no, I can't, whatever. She said that she was bringing a side of broccoli. This girl showed up like, those microwavable broccoli bags. She hadn't even cooked that shit in her house. So she's there, she's gonna cook that shit, right? So Cassandra's sitting down, she had gone to get dessert. And I think, did she try to grab like food from your plate, or she asked you like, can I try it?
No. She asked.
She asked.
Because there was a line. Yo, I got online to get this dessert. And I've been waiting for this shit forever because Sophie made una tarta de galleta. And I'm like, yo, this shit is so good. So I'm like, all right, I'm here. Imagine, right? You just go off the line. You're sitting there with your plate. You have like 2 glasses of wine in your system. And I'm like, can I try it? And I was like, no. And I just kept eating.
Yo, when I tell you the tension in that room for that split second, because everyone was like, yo, did she really just say no to her? And I admired you so much for that, because that girl deserved that. Like, that's the least that she deserved that night. A no. Because it's like, yo, like the audacity, you know what I mean? That right there, I feel like you set a boundary there of like, don't try me. Like, you our bitch, and you had the audacity to show up here with fucking broccoli bags.
With uncooked broccoli. So yeah, so I need to practice that more. That like, no. And then just continue about my business.
Like, you didn't even like say why. You just
No
like
explanation.
no, you can't
COVID
try
wasn't
it,
a
like.
thing. So I couldn't even be like, oh, I don't like to share. No. Oh man, I need that.
That was for the books. That was for there's been a couple of those though. There's been a couple. I just can't put my finger on any other, but there's been a couple where I'm like, damn, Cassandra, okay. Like like sometimes like I feel like with you don't care. Like when you don't care about the person, like you don't care. Like you'll be like
yeah, that's true. Because I remember, I mean, okay, quick story time. But you'll remember this. We were out, you had some cash on you.
Oh, I remember.
Wanted to use your money. And I was like, are you going to pay her back? Or I forgot what I said, but I was just
no. We were at the bar. We were at the bar and they were going to order shots. Mm-hmm. And then they turned around and they were like, oh, yo, you got money. And I had a €5 bill and I was holding it because I was going to buy something for myself or some shit. This motherfucker fucking grabbed the bill, like literally yanked it out of my hand. Yeah. Oh. Yo, Cass went off. She went, and I was so happy that you did because I knew like I wasn't going to, like, I'm not, especially when it comes to money, yo, I need to learn how to say no sometimes because I don't know how to say no. And I was like, bro, like that was so rude.
Did you just take her money?
That was so, that guy, to be honest with you, I don't think he watches us, but if he does, fuck you, because you know who the fuck you are. And honestly, in regards to money, he was the cheapest motherfucker that I ever fucking dated, or like, if you want to say dated, whatever the fuck was going on there. He was so cheap, so cheap.
Yeah, because you don't have to buy me stuff like that. Like that's okay, but like
I'm not. Don't yank money out of my hand.
Exactly. And I don't like when you want to sit here and be like, oh, I don't got money. So then you're always spotting this person, but they got money to cop bud. They got money to go out drinking, but they don't got money to
every
pay for
day.
Meal.
They got money to fucking go on vacation, to go everywhere, fucking travel all over Europe every day. Like, but you don't got the €5 to pay for these fucking shots that you know that I'm working for, because that's another thing.
Yeah, you were working. Like,
I was working and I was in school and I was like super, but that's what I'm saying. Like, sometimes you also, that to me now would be a huge red flag. Like if you know I'm going through it and you're not like being supportive about it and you're trying to take advantage of me, boy bye.
So
anyways,
let's help you guys set these boundaries. Not so much like us, because that was just me being like really petty, but so you can start with self-reflection. First of all, like, why is it important to you and how will it actually improve your well-being? Just like asking yourself, like, is this something that's bothering me on a consistent basis? How can I approach this? So, it makes like my life better, my well-being better. So start small, like we mentioned. It's every decision that you take day by day. You don't have to think about like a grand boundary setting scheme. And if you can start early, it is easier for you to set a boundary in a new relationship or friendship than it is in the pre-existing one. Not that it's impossible, but I think that if someone first gets to know you and you're like, hey, like this is how I work, then they can either accept it or leave it. Mm-hmm. So, also being consistent and clear. Don't say that you want to set a certain boundary and then you don't follow through with it, because then that person's not going to take those boundaries seriously, and they're probably not going to respect them if you try to implement them at a later time. Also create a framework. So boundaries will vary. Again, they're varying between the types of boundaries. So how you set it up and between your relationships, that will also vary, but having a few basics in place, and like they can just be adapted accordingly. Also, be aware of social media. Oversharing is a problem.
Sometimes I'm learning
for yourself.
Yeah, I'm learning to not do that because I do admit that sometimes like I'll post like memes that are intentional, throw
You're
shade
like,
and be
"Collective."
petty. And I've gotten called out because he'll be like, bro, are you serious? Like, why do you have to go on Instagram? You're so quick to go on Instagram and post something petty like every time we argue. And I'm trying to like not do that anymore because that's so bad. Like, yeah.
Because the person's like, that is to me, like, why are you?
Yeah.
I get that. I get that.
Yeah, yeah. But you know, people usually don't call you out. So when you get called out, you're like, fuck, that was for you.
You saw that? Sorry. Oh my god. You're funny. Oh, okay.
Oh.
And last one, talk some more. So
Talk and
assert
talk
your boundaries.
Literally.
Without being confrontational. Like you could literally be like, hey, yeah, sure, like I can hang out with you, but I need to be home by 5 o'clock. And that's like,
and that's it.
Hard stop at 5. Yeah, and then be clear and be consistent, and at 5 o'clock go home. Like
go home. Like you said before, follow through with what you're saying, because if I'm telling you, oh, I don't like it when you talk to me like this, but every time that you talk to me like this, I just sit there and take it, you're gonna continue to do it.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah,
hope that helped.
So yeah, with that being said, I hope that we can all recover from our people pleasing tendencies. And yeah, I hope this served some of you. Yes. But anyways, until next time, love you.